Hello everyone, this is Samad, and in this video I'm going to show you how to validate forms in React. So let's start. I have already created a new project by calling the command npx create react app. Here I have already added one login component with two forms. One is for the email and one is for the password. Here is a simple css to make a layout a little bit better. So here is the preview for the application. Okay, let's start. So I will be using a form validation library called enfometa forms, which can be used in both React.js and React Native. This library is simple, flexible and easy to use. Even you can use this with the custom components the same way you use with the basic input or HTML components, with a minor configuration in the start. So let's try to install that. I have opened a new terminal from the new terminal, and here npm install enfometa forms. Okay, that's great. Library is installed successfully. Okay, so the next step is to create the forms object by providing the forms information to the hook use forms. This hook accepts an object with forms array. Each form item has a name, an initial value and array of validators. So let's try to use that. Use forms. Let's try to provide the forms array. This must be an array, and here we need to specify name. For example, I'm going to make this an email. An initial value is empty and a list of validators. Enfometa forms provides a couple of built-in validators like required email pattern, minimum length, range, compare, etc. So you can see all the list of validators in the documentation. I will be providing the link for the documentation in the description of this video. So okay, let's try to provide the validator list. So first, this is the email. So in email we would like to make this required as well as validate the email pattern as well. So here the name, for example, I would like to make this is also a user defined name. The function of the validator, which is the required. This is the built-in validator provided by the enfometa forms, and the message. This is the error message we would like to show you when this is invalid, but we will look into this later when we work with the UI elements like here in the HTML and in the HTML. Okay, and email is required. This is a message. Okay, the next validator for this is the email validator. I'm going to copy this to save some time. And as this is the email, we can here say that invalid email. Sorry. Okay, here the email is also a function which is imported automatically by the VS Code from the enfometa forms. Let's provide the configuration, the form configuration for the password field. So I'm going to make this as password. The value is empty, and here we just need to have only one validator. So I have removed the another. This is the required. Okay, that's all good. And updating the message, for example. Okay, so now our forms object is ready, and let's use this form object in the HTML. So what we need to do is to wrap all the input forms in the form group here, and we need to put all these inputs inside this. Okay, let's save it. And here is the property forms, in which we need to specify this form object, which we have created under line number 4. Okay, the next step is to use the form. Here this is a component and we need to wrap our input here in this and specify the form name. And here we have named this as email. Okay, sorry for the misspell. And similarly the password as well. Wrap this here and specify the form name as password. Okay, here you can see we have named one as email and one as password, so we have specified this is the form name as email and here as password. Next we want to show the error messages, so we need to use the error message component, inform error message with form name, for example email, with validator name, for example required. We have named this as required. If you see here, this is the name which should match with this validator name. And similarly I want to copy this next and say this is also the form name email, but the validator name this time is the email. So it will be showing the messages for the email form. This one is for the required and this one is for the email validator here from this configuration. Here this em form error message renders the text, the error message as a text which we have provided here. So you need to wrap this in a varied HTML or a varied React Native element. Like for example, I'm going to wrap this in the dev here, but of course in React Native you need to, I think you need to mention or use the text element. So I'm going to specify the class name as I have already created a class name here, the error message, and I also need to copy this to apply for the password as well. And that's all. Let's try to refresh this, and if you want to focus this, here you can see it is showing the email error message and also the password error message. And if we try to type something, so here it will be showing the invalid email. So let's try to make valid email. So here you can see the message disappears, and similarly if you want to try to enter the password, so the error disappears. Okay, so next I want to trigger these error messages on the login button click. So what we need to do is here, for example we want to have a login function, and we need to call the validate, for example if form.validate. So then we need to perform some action like submitting the forms data to the server. So we need to specify this login function on the click for this button. Okay, this form.validate function will trigger all the error messages associated with this forms object. Let's try to demonstrate it. Refresh this and click on the login button. So here you can see all the errors are prompted to the user, and when we try to provide a password, so it is also validating the email as well. And similarly if you provide the password, it's also working, and the message disappears when we provide any input in the forms field. This validate function will return true or false, so in case of true you can pass the data to the server here. Okay, so now if you want to show some other error messages or some custom messages or some custom elements, instead of just having the error messages in text, you can use, let's try to comment this, and what you can do is you can use another element called enfom error. Here you also need to specify the form name and the validator name as well, and here you can specify your custom elements like div, and this is a custom error message. let's try to save it. I have done this for the required validator. Okay, sounds good. Let's try to refresh this, and here you can see this is a custom error message, and whatever you want to have inside this, it will be rendered. So you can have your custom icons maybe, or custom any other custom error messages. Okay, I'm going to comment this out again and uncomment this. So this depends on situation whether you want to use the enform error or the enform error message. Make sure that enform error message should be grabbed in a valid HTML or a valid React Native element, because this just renders the text, and this returns or renders the children which you have provided here. Okay, so now if you want to pass this data to the server, so usually we need JSON to pass this data to the server. So if you want to convert this all configuration or this form data to a JSON, so what you need to do is, for example, model is equal to forms dot to model. Okay, I'm going to just make this console log in model. Put in the console. So for example, I'm going to open the console, and sorry, I typed an invalid email. Here you can see it has returned this object, email is equal to this and password is equal to this. If you like this video, please hit like, share and subscribe to my channel Infometa.